The siren pierced the frigid night air like a desperate wail cutting through the light snowfall blanketing San Francisco's streets. It was 11:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and the Central Hospital's emergency entrance buzzed with urgency as an ambulance screeched to a halt. Paramedics burst from the vehicle, wheeling a gurney toward the sliding doors. On it lay a young woman, her elegant evening dress torn and soaked in blood, her face pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. Olivia Marchand's breaths came in ragged gasps, her pulse fluttering weakly as monitors beeped in alarm. Blood seeped from a deep gash on her forehead, and her left arm hung limp-twisted unnaturally from the impact of the car crash. "Please, just make it fast," she whispered through gritted teeth, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "I don't want the pain." The ER doors whooshed open and the gurney rushed inside. Nurses and doctors swarmed, shouting orders for IVS scans and oxygen. But in the split second before they reached her, a figure emerged from the shadows of the hallway, a man in a simple security uniform, his badge glinting faintly. He wasn't supposed to be there. His job was to patrol the perimeter, check IDs, and keep the peace during the holiday frenzy. Yet without hesitation, he stepped forward, his hands moving with practiced precision. "Hold on," he said calmly, his voice steady amid the panic. He pressed firmly on a pressure point near her wound, stemming the flow of blood, then whipped off his jacket to fashion a makeshift tourniquet around her arm. His calloused fingers worked quickly, tying it secure while he monitored her breathing. The paramedics paused, exchanging glances, but didn't interfere. His actions were too assured, too expert. Olivia's eyes fluttered open, hazy with pain and shock. Who are you?" She managed her gaze, locking onto his face, a rugged man in his late 30s with short-cropped hair flecked with gray and eyes that held a quiet intensity. "Just a janitor," he replied softly, though his uniform said security. "But I'm better with heartbeats than most." He adjusted the tourniquet slightly, ensuring it wasn't too tight, then stepped back as the medical team took over. "You'll be okay. Hang in there." As the doctors whisked her away to surgery, Olivia caught one last glimpse of him standing there jacketless, in the cold draft from the doors, wiping blood from his hands on his pants. He didn't follow. He simply turned and resumed his patrol as if saving a life was just another part of his shift. Ethan Hayes was no stranger to chaos. At 38, he had seen more blood and desperation than most people could imagine. A former combat medic in Afghanistan, he had patched up soldiers under fire, made split-second decisions that meant life or death. But the war had taken its toll, and when he returned home, the real battle began. His wife Sarah had been diagnosed with cancer during his last deployment. He left the military to care for her, but it wasn't enough. She passed away 3 years ago, leaving him alone to raise their daughter Lila, who was now 8. The nights were the hardest. That's why he took the graveyard shift as a hospital security guard. It paid the bills, let him sleep during the day, and allowed him to pick Lila up from school, make her dinner, and tuck her in before heading back to work. He didn't seek recognition. He just wanted to provide for his little girl the one bright light in his shadowed world. Olivia Marchand, on the other hand, lived in a world of spotlights and boardrooms. At 36, she was the CEO of Marchand Tech, one of Silicon Valley's powerhouse companies revolutionizing AI and data security. Her days were filled with high-stakes meetings, investor calls, and media interviews that painted her as the epitome of success, a self-made woman who had clawed her way to the top after a fractured childhood. But beneath the polished exterior, she carried scars of her own parents, who divorced bitterly, a controlling mother who valued achievement over affection, and a fiancé who abandoned her 2 years ago after a devastating miscarriage. She had built walls around her heart, convinced that vulnerability was a weakness in her cutthroat industry. In that frantic ER moment, all barriers crumbled. The powerful CEO, admired by thousands, owed her life to a man most people overlooked. The security guard mopping up spills or checking visitor badges. Ethan didn't know who she was. He didn't care. He had acted on instinct the same way he had in the field or at Sarah's bedside. For Olivia, drifting in and out of consciousness as surgeons worked that night marked a turning point. A stranger had seen her not as a titan of industry, but as a human in need, and he had chosen to help without expecting anything in return. For Ethan, it was just another shift, Another life touched in the quiet hours before midnight. As fireworks began to light up the distant sky, he clocked out, drove home to his modest apartment, and kissed Lila's forehead as she slept. Little did he know, the woman he had saved would soon upend his carefully guarded world. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Olivia lay in the sterile hospital room, the beeps of monitors a constant reminder of how close she had come to the end. The surgery had been successful. Doctors removed shards of glass from her side and set her broken arm, but recovery was slow. Pain radiated through her body with every movement, and the morphine drip only dulled the edges. Yet amid the haze, one image persisted: the security guard's face, his steady hands working to save her. She replayed the moment over and over, the way he had appeared from nowhere, his voice calm and reassuring. "Just a janitor," he had said, but his actions spoke of something far more skilled. A few days after the accident, Olivia summoned the hospital administrator to her bedside. "I need to know who that man was, the one who helped me in the ER," she said, her voice still weak but laced with determination. The administrator nodded, pulling up records on his tablet. "His name is Ethan Hayes. He's one of our night security guards. Been here about 2 years. Quiet guy, reliable." Olivia requested his contact information, intending to send a thank you. Through the administrator, she offered a generous reward from her personal funds, a check that could cover months of rent or more. But when the message was relayed, Ethan's response came back simple and firm. "She doesn't need to. Doesn't need. I just did what anyone with a heart would do." The refusal intrigued her. In her world of Silicon Valley deals and corporate negotiations, people always wanted something funding, favors, connections, but this man had walked away without a second thought. As she lay there staring at the ceiling, Olivia's mind wandered to her own scars, the ones no surgery could fix. Olivia had grown up in a sprawling estate in Palo Alto, the daughter of a tech mogul father and a socialite mother whose marriage crumbled under the weight of ambition and infidelity. By age 10, she was shuttled between homes, her mother's controlling grip shaping her into a perfectionist. "Success is the only armor you need," her mother had drilled into her. Olivia internalized it, graduating top of her class at Stanford, founding Marchand Tech at 28, and becoming CEO by 30. The company soared, making her one of the most powerful women in the valley. But 2 years ago, everything shattered. Engaged to a rising star in venture capital, she had suffered a miscarriage that left her devastated. Her fiancé, unable to handle the grief, left her with a cold note: "I can't do this anymore." Since then, she had buried herself in work-building walls so high that no one could scale them. Trust was a liability, kindness a potential trap. Across town, Ethan Hayes navigated his own quiet battles. His apartment in a modest Oakland neighborhood was filled with the echoes of a life once fuller. Flashbacks haunted him, the dusty fields of Afghanistan, where as a combat medic he had stitched wounds under gunfire, saving limbs and lives amid chaos. He had enlisted young, driven by a sense of duty, but the horrors accumulated: friends lost to IEDs, the constant adrenaline that never fully faded. When he rotated home for good, Sarah's diagnosis hit like an ambush: breast cancer, aggressive and unrelenting. Ethan left the military to be by her side, holding her hand through chemo reading to her in the quiet hours. Lila was 5 when Sarah slipped away, her final words a plea: "Promise me you'll show her the good in the world." Ethan had nodded, tears silent, but the promise weighed heavy. Now he worked nights to avoid the daylight reminders of loss. Days were for Lila dropping her off at school with a packed lunch, helping with homework, tucking her in with stories of brave soldiers and kind hearts. She was his anchor, a bright-eyed girl with her mother's curls and a curiosity that pierced his defenses. "Daddy, why do you work at night?" she asked sometimes. "So I can be here when you wake up," he always replied, hiding the exhaustion. Ethan's refusal of the reward stemmed from a deeper place. He had seen enough glory in the military medals pinned on uniforms that couldn't erase the nightmares. Now he craved anonymity, fearing that attention might disrupt the fragile balance he maintained for Lila. He didn't want pity or praise, he just wanted to provide, to be the steady presence Sarah couldn't be. As Olivia's strength returned, she couldn't shake the encounter. She researched Ethan's discreetly old military records, a quiet LinkedIn profile listing only his current job. He was a ghost in the digital world she dominated. One afternoon, discharged but still bandaged, she decided to return to the hospital, not for a checkup but to find him. The administrator had mentioned he sometimes ate lunch in the cafeteria with his daughter. Olivia drove there, her luxury sedan feeling out of place in the staff parking lot. She needed answers, not just gratitude, but understanding why someone like him existed in a world that rewarded the loud and overlooked the quiet. As she entered the bustling cafeteria, her eyes scanned the room, landing on a table where a man in a security uniform shared a sandwich with a little girl. Olivia entered the hospital cafeteria, the hum of fluorescent lights and distant chatter, a stark contrast to the quiet luxury of her usual lunches. Her arm was still in a sling, and she moved with a careful gait, but determination propelled her forward. Spotting Ethan at a corner table, she paused. He was sharing a simple meal with the little girl, his daughter no doubt. The child had curly hair tied in pigtails and was giggling as she handed him half a sandwich. As Olivia approached, the girl looked up, first her eyes widening in recognition. "Daddy, it's the lady from the ambulance night. She looks happier now." Ethan glanced up, surprise flickering across his face. He set down his fork, wiping his hands on a napkin. "Ms. Marchand," he said, his voice even, but tinged with awkwardness. "I didn't expect to see you here." Olivia hesitated, then pulled out a chair and sat uninvited but compelled. "I hope I'm not intruding. I wanted to talk in person." She glanced at the girl, who stared back with open curiosity. "You must be Lila." The child nodded enthusiastically. "Yep, and you're the one Daddy helped. He told me about it, but he said not to tell anyone because it's not a big deal." Lila pushed a small container toward Olivia. "Do you want some? I have an extra apple pie. Grandma baked it." Olivia smiled, faintly touched by the gesture. She accepted a small piece, the warmth of the pastry contrasting with the cool hospital air. "Thank you, Lila. That's very kind." Ethan watched the exchange, his expression softening slightly. "She insists on packing extras. Says it's for friends we haven't met yet." He turned to Olivia. "What brings you back? Everything okay with your recovery?" "It's progressing," Olivia replied, her gaze steady. "But I came because of your response to my thank you. The reward from the board, why turn it down? It wasn't charity, it was gratitude." Ethan leaned back, glancing at Lila before answering. He spoke quietly, as if weighing each word. "Money's not why I do this job, or why I helped that night. I just want to get home in time for dinner with her." He nodded toward his daughter, who was now drawing on a napkin with a crayon. "I almost lost that once thinking work was more important than everything else." Olivia absorbed his words, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. She thought of her own endless meetings, the late nights alone in her penthouse chasing accolades that felt increasingly hollow. Before she could respond, a nurse passing by paused, recognizing Olivia from the news. The woman leaned in discreetly. "You know, Ethan saved more than just you here. Last month he spotted a kid in the parking garage having a heart episode, did CPR until help came. Kid's fine now, but he didn't even file a report. Just went back to his rounds like nothing happened." Olivia's eyes widened slightly. "He didn't mention that." The nurse shrugged. "That's Ethan. Doesn't seek the spotlight." She moved on, leaving Olivia to process the revelation. As lunch continued, the conversation shifted to lighter topics: Lila's school art project, her favorite bedtime stories. Olivia found herself laughing at the girls' animated tales, a genuine sound that surprised even her. For the first time in years, she wasn't the CEO in the room, she was just a person sharing a meal, but beneath the ease, questions swirled. Who deserved admiration? The executives like her with their TED Talks and magazine covers, or someone like Ethan whose quiet acts of heroism went unnoticed? Society elevated the visible successes, the power players, but overlooked the everyday anchors holding things together. Ethan embodied that invisibility, a single father scraping by on a modest salary, his worth measured not in stock options, but in the trust of a child. As the meal wrapped up, Lila hugged her father goodbye before he walked her to the hospital daycare for a short playtime. Olivia stood to leave her mind racing. "Thank you for letting me join," she said to Ethan. "It's given me a lot to think about." He nodded, gathering their trays. "Take care of yourself, Ms. Marchand." She walked out into the parking lot, the winter sun casting long shadows. For the first time, Olivia questioned the armor she had built, the one that protected her from hurt, but also from connection. Ethan's world, simple and unassuming, highlighted the cracks in her own. As she drove back to her office, the image of father and daughter lingered, a quiet challenge to redefine what truly mattered. In the weeks following their cafeteria encounter, Olivia found herself drawn back to the hospital grounds more often than she cared to admit. At first, it was under the guise of follow-up appointments, but soon she lingered, wandering the nearby park where hospital staff took breaks. One crisp afternoon, she spotted Ethan and Lila there, Lila swinging on the playground equipment, her laughter carrying on the breeze, while Ethan watched from a bench, a thermos of coffee in hand. Olivia approached hesitantly, her sling now replaced by a brace. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. Ethan looked up, a small smile breaking through his usual reserve. "Not at all. Lila's been asking about the nice lady from lunch." As Olivia sat, Lila spotted her and ran over, breathless. "Hi, wanna push me on the swing." The request was so simple, yet it thawed something in Olivia. She obliged, her good arm gently guiding the swing as Lila squealed with delight. Ethan joined them, the three falling into easy conversation about the changing leaves and Lila's latest school project, a diorama of a fairy tale castle. There were no grand gestures, no probing questions about their pasts, just the quiet comfort of shared moments. As days turned to weeks, these encounters became a subtle routine. One evening, Ethan realized he had left his cap in the park after a hurried departure to pick up Lila from after-school care. The next day, Olivia appeared at the hospital security desk, holding it out with a thermos of hot cocoa she had made herself. "Thought you might need this on a cold shift," she said. Ethan accepted it with a nod. "Appreciate it. Lila loves cocoa, says it tastes like magic." Olivia smiled. "Maybe it is." The changes were gradual, almost imperceptible. Olivia began canceling late meetings, citing personal time in her calendar, something her assistants noted with raised eyebrows. She used the freed hours to reflect, often driving aimlessly before ending up near the hospital. Ethan, meanwhile, started setting his alarm 15 minutes earlier each morning. He prepared breakfast for Lila with extra care, heart-shaped pancakes one day, a note in her lunchbox the next. It was as if the brief glimpses of connection with Olivia reminded him that small acts could rebuild what loss had eroded. One rainy afternoon, Olivia was leaving a board meeting when she spotted Ethan outside Lila's school, huddled under a shared umbrella with his daughter as they waited for the bus. Water streamed down his coat, but he shielded Lila completely. Without thinking, Olivia pulled over, rolled down her window, and called out, "Need a ride?" Ethan hesitated, glancing at Lila, who waved excitedly. "If it's not too much trouble." They piled into her car, the warmth of the heater a welcome contrast to the downpour. Lila chattered about her day, oblivious to the adults' quiet exchange of glances. At their apartment building, as Ethan helped Lila out, Olivia noticed his soaked shoulders. She shrugged off her own coat and draped it over Lila's small frame. "Here, keep her dry." Ethan met her eyes. "You still have that jacket from the night of the accident," Olivia nodded. "I washed it, but I kept it. It reminds me that there's still something good in this world." The words hung between them, unspoken vulnerabilities surfacing. Ethan touched the coat's sleeve briefly. "Thanks for the ride, and for this." As Olivia drove away, rain pattering on her windshield, she felt a crack in her defenses, a slow thaw after years of isolation. Ethan, watching her taillights fade, felt a similar shift. He had built his life around protecting Lila, fearing that opening up might invite more pain. Olivia's world of wealth and influence intimidated him. What could he offer someone like her? Yet her quiet persistence, the way she engaged with Lila without pretense, chipped away at his reservations. Lila became the unwitting bridge. One weekend, Ethan invited Olivia to a local library story hour. Nothing formal, just a casual outing. Lila sat between them, wide-eyed at the tales of adventure. Afterward, over ice cream cones, Lila pulled out a drawing from her backpack. A crayon sketch of 3 figures holding hands under a sunny sky. "This is us," she announced proudly. "And Olivia is in the middle, because she's our sunshine." Olivia's throat tightened, her fingers tracing the wobbly lines. "That's beautiful, Lila. Thank you." Ethan watched the moment, his heart stirring with a mix of warmth and caution. He saw how Olivia's presence lit up his daughter, how it eased the edges of his own solitude. But doubts lingered. Her life was one of boardrooms and galas, his of night shifts and school pickups. Olivia, too, grappled with fear after her miscarriage, and abandonment. Trust felt like a risk. Yet these small interactions, shared laughs, thoughtful gestures built a foundation layer by layer. As winter deepened, Olivia found herself contemplating a bold step. She wanted to honor Ethan not just privately, but publicly, to challenge the world's skewed view of heroes. It started as a fleeting idea during a sleepless night, but it grew into resolve. She would use her platform at Marchand Tech to shine a light on the unsung, starting with the man who had saved her. 1 week later, the auditorium at Marchand Tech's headquarters in Silicon Valley buzzed with anticipation. Reporters, employees, and investors filled the seats, murmuring about the surprise press conference. Speculation ran high, perhaps a new AI breakthrough or a major acquisition. Olivia stood backstage, her arm brace hidden under a tailored blazer, her heart pounding not from nerves about business, but from the vulnerability of what she was about to share. The screen behind the podium flickered to life as she stepped forward, the room falling silent. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," Olivia began, her voice steady through the microphone. "Many of you know me as the CEO who turns ideas into empires. But tonight I want to talk about something more important than our latest product launch." She paused, signaling for the image to appear on the massive screen, Ethan's blood-stained security jacket, now cleaned and framed in the glass. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "This jacket saved my life on New Year's Eve. Not because of any high-tech fabric, but because of the man who wore it, a hospital security guard who acted without hesitation when I was bleeding out in the ER." She recounted the accident briefly, her words measured but laced with emotion. "I once believed power came from control, from boardrooms and balance sheets. But that night, a man most of us would overlook reminded me otherwise. He didn't know who I was, he just saw someone in need. Today I want to publicly apologize for the times I've overlooked the quiet heroes among us, the ones who keep our world running without fanfare. And I want to honor my hero, Ethan Hayes." The auditorium erupted in applause as Ethan emerged from the wings, Lila in his arms, her eyes wide at the sea of faces. He had been reluctant when Olivia invited him, but Lila's excitement, "Daddy, it's like a big party," had swayed him. Now standing under the spotlights, he looked uncomfortable in his best shirt, his face flushing as the ovation grew. Olivia turned to him, her expression genuine. "Thank you, Ethan. For everything." He nodded, shifting Lila higher on his hip. "I was just doing my job," he said into the microphone, his voice low but clear. Lila leaned in, her small hand waving. And "Daddy's the best at helping people." The moment captured hearts in the room, and soon after a photo of the trio on stage went viral. But it was Lila's drawing shared by Olivia during the Q&A that truly spread like wildfire across social media. The crayon artwork depicted 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright sun, with the caption in childish scrawl. "Thank you, Olivia, for making Daddy and me smile more." Comments flooded in, thousands moved to tears by the simplicity, not from sorrow, but from the reminder of hidden kindness in a cynical world. In the aftermath, healing rippled outward. Olivia announced the launch of the Lila Hope Fund, a scholarship program at Marchand Tech, dedicated to supporting the children of essential workers, security guards, nurses, janitors pursuing education in technology and STEM. "This isn't about charity," she said. "It's about recognizing that true innovation starts with valuing every person." Donations poured in, and the fund quickly amassed resources to change lives. Ethan, true to form, declined Olivia's offer of an advisory role at the company. "Appreciate it," he told her privately after the event as they stood in a quiet hallway. "But I'd rather clock out early and read bedtime stories to this one." Lila yawned against his shoulder, clutching her drawing. Olivia understood. Their bond had deepened not through grand declarations, but through the quiet spaces they had carved for each other. She visited their apartment more often now, sharing simple dinners or helping with Lila's homework. Ethan opened up about Sarah's final days, and Olivia shared the ache of her miscarriage, the losses that had shaped them both. No rushed romance, no dramatic confessions, just two scarred souls learning to lean on one another. As spring arrived, Ethan found himself looking forward to Olivia's texts, her presence a steady light in his routine. One evening, as he tucked Lila in, she whispered, "Olivia makes our family feel bigger, Daddy." He kissed her forehead, the words resonating. Olivia, back in her office, stared at the framed jacket on her wall, a symbol that sometimes being saved meant saving someone else in return. In the end, the story closed as it began, unassuming, yet transformative. Ethan continued his shifts, Olivia led her empire with newfound humility, and Lila's sunshine bound them. Because sometimes the one rescued becomes the rescuer, teaching us all to live a little kinder. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that heroes walk among us often in the shadows. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales of unexpected connections and the quiet power of compassion.